Hey everybody, thank you for being here. It's that time of year where we're kind of in that weird, goofy gray area. We're really not so much working on 2018 anymore. Would you agree?
Yes.
We're really working on what? 2019, specifically which months? January.
First three.
Yeah, you're working on January and February right now. Maybe a little bit of March if it's new construction, potentially. But really, everybody in this room right now is working on January and March in terms of new business, right? So is there anybody in here already know that they're on track or ahead of their goal for 2019? Don't freak out. Good for you. Good for you. Good for you. That you're a rarity. You're a rarity. A lot of times people don't really start looking at that or realize, holy crap, maybe I'm not on track to the goal I set for next year until they're already into January or February, right? So having that awareness in your business right now and focusing on it is absolutely crucial. So if you've got a goal in terms of the amount of business that you want to do in the next year, does anybody know what thresholds we like to look for in terms of closings already booked in that next year and pipeline, in terms of what percentage of your business should you already have lined up to close in 2019 to be in line with meeting your goal, and what percentage should you kind of already have in the pipeline ready to go for 2019 to help you be on pace with your goal? Any guesses at what those numbers might be? Say again?
12%.
12%? Okay, what else? So John, is that 12% both combined or 12% already on the books to close, or 12% just in the pipeline, or a combination?
If there's 12 months in the year,
Yep.
you better have one of those months filled up already.
So you're saying 1/12 worth of your business. Okay, that's a good way of thinking about it. Anybody else?
Number of listings?
Yes. So if you were to say, if I wanted to take 20 listings in 2019, what percentage should I already have accounted for coming into the new year? I'm just curious. I'm not looking for a right or wrong answer.
8 to 10%.
Okay, so 10% in terms of, I'm going to call that your pipeline.
It depends on how many listings you need to have.
Depends on your goal.
Yeah.
Right. So if I need a pipeline of about 10%, meaning these are pieces of business in the works coming into the new year, what percentage of my business do I already need to have scheduled closings for? Any guesses as to what that percentage is? Maybe clue looks a lot like this percentage. 10%. So a good rule of thumb would be, if you're moving into the next year and you already have your goal in mind, for you to be on track or on pace with your goal, or to not start behind, you want at least 10% of your goal, whatever that number happens to be, you want 10% already on the books with scheduled closings in 2019 to be in line with your goal. And oh, by the way, you want another 10% in the pipeline, meaning signed buyer reps and signed listing agreements that you know will be business in 2019. Because to John's point, you need to come into that year already having a couple months worth of business. Does that make sense? Some of you are having a whole crap moment right now. Because like, what if that percentage is 0, right? That's okay. You've got some time to fix that. And what I would tell you is, moving forward, especially when it comes to planning for next year and years in the future, this is a good rule of thumb that you want to be shooting for to start the next year strong. Whatever my goal is, do I have 10% of those closings already lined up coming into the next year? And do I have at least 10% of that number in terms of deals in the pipeline ready to go? Because by the time you get into January, you've already begun surrendering time to be in line with your goal. So you have to come at your year. So let me put it to you another way. You need to already have a head start on 20% of next year's goal in November and December of the year prior. Because you need that momentum to keep moving forward into the next year and fuel that goal. Does that make sense? Questions, thoughts on that? I'm going to wait till I get some questions about that. I'm just going to sit down on those now. Has anybody looked at their business that way before? I'll be honest with you, I did business for several years, never looking at it that way. I was like, okay, January 1, here we go. Let's do this. Not knowing I was already behind. No, Zach, you should have been having that celebratory chant in November or December. If you're serious about the goal for the coming year, right? We can't wait to start on it day 1 of that year. Jennifer,
So
there we go. I knew somebody had something.
I'm asking for a friend. If it's December 11th, and we don't have those things done yet,
Yeah.
what would that friend do then? I'm asking.
We'll talk about that. Great question. So Jennifer, what I would suggest to your friend first and foremost is I would look at, oops, I don't want to use my highlighter on the board. Probably not. What I would do is I would look at the goal, what my overall goal is, and I would look at, okay, how many closings do I already have lined up? And I would look at what's in my pipeline, and then I would examine what the gap is. What's my gap right now between where I should be? Because if we all take our annual goals and we break them down monthly, we know what our monthly goals are, right? For example, your monthly goal might be 2 listings a month. Let's just boil it down to closings. Let's make it simple. The goal is 3 closings a month. 3 closings, right? So if I know right now that I've only got 1 closing booked in January, but I feel confident that I have, 3 more spoken for, well, how far off of my goal right now am I? I'm off by, I would say 2, right? So what I can do a couple of things. I can double down. I'm probably not at this point. I might for another week and a half. I might be able to force closings in January. Maybe. More realistically, instead of my goal being 3 a month for March and April, what should it become? 4 or 5. 4 or 5, right? If I know my monthly goal is 3 a month, and I already understand, holy crap, I'm behind right now. I'm maybe averaging 1 to 2. There's a couple things I can do. I can try to affect it as soon as possible, but I need to start adjusting my goal in the future. Right? We're going to have this conversation in a few months, by the way. Right? Because how many months in a row can you afford to be behind your goal before it begins to seem overwhelming? I would submit to you, maybe 3 if you're lucky. You get behind 2 months, all of a sudden you're in panic mode. But the good news is, first quarter is traditionally what? Traditionally tougher. You just traditionally people aren't doing as much business in first quarter. So you might average, 1 deal a month, 2 deals a month. But come these other quarters, what might you average a month? You might average 4 or 5, right? So always take into account some seasonality, especially in the first quarter. Don't panic. But you can't just count on seasonality to do it for you. You have to strategically look at where you're at and how you're performing and realize, okay, I'm behind. So what I can try to do is use the natural momentum of quarters 2 and 3 to plus up my monthly closings to get me back in line with my goal, right? Don't rely on it to do it for you just by itself. There's going to be a conscientious effort that needs to take place to get you back in line with that goal at that point. But the point of the conversation this morning is to help folks realize, number 1, where am I in relation to my goal for next year? And number 2, do I need to make any changes or adjustments right now? Because do you think it's easier to make the changes and adjustments prior to quarter 1 or during quarter 1 or in quarters 3 or 4? If you need to make a change in quarter 3, you better hope it's a small gap to close. If you need to make a change in quarter 4, you might as well just say, I'm pushing all these to next year because I want to start ahead on that goal. You know what I mean? Any other questions or thoughts? This is the real takeaway right here. 10% in the pipeline, 10% closings already booked into the next year of the overall goal, and that will set you up for success. Imagine right now, if you were going into January and you already had 3 or 4 closings on the books. If I asked you what your pending GCI for 2019 was, and you said, well, right now it's about $30,000 to $35,000 for 2019, how would that make you feel about your business? If you came back and said, Zach, I've already got $1 million in volume on the books of closing in 2019, I'd say, we're not even there yet. Congratulations, that's phenomenal. That's where we want to be strategically when it comes to looking at our business. A lot of agents, we're looking at our business, if we're lucky, monthly. What do I got this month? Awesome. We need to know that, but you should have known what you got going on this month, last quarter. We need to be looking ahead to each quarter and overall what we're shooting for the year on a regular basis, right? If we're only ever focusing on the month, we're always going to be playing catch up. Any other thoughts or questions on that? This isn't a bring you down conversation. It's to get you excited about upping you up to get yourself in line with your closings and the pipeline that you need in order to have a great next year. This right here, this 10% threshold on your pipeline, I think that's low. I'd like to see you have way more than 10% kind of already on the books and projected for the prior year before you go into it. Imagine the confidence that gives you going into the year when it comes to your goal in your business. It's pretty phenomenal. How many of you guys know you already have deals coming your way in 2019? Like you've already talked to people, how does that make you feel? Pretty dang good, right? It's phenomenal. So keep tracking it. Keep pushing those numbers up. Okay. So without further ado, let's jump into some of our market statistics and see what's going on in the market here locally. So if you would be so kind, maybe take one and share with your partner at your table. Thank you. We're going to look at what's going on in Seymour as a whole first, and then we'll dial it down into Rochester specifically. So this is just for Seymour, November 2018. When we look at number of listings, what do we got going on? This is for all of Seymour. Number of listings has done what?
It's gone up, but it's starting to stabilize.
Yeah, it's gone down slightly. It's gone down slightly. Does that seem counterintuitive to anybody? No. It does to me. I usually see the listing inventory tick up a little bit this time of year because of what? First of the year. Say again? First of the year. We're getting close to the first of the year. So that actually could be contributing to a decline in listings because some people might be waiting for the first of the year. But this time of year, sometimes what begins to happen with properties, they sit on the market a little bit longer. So usually we begin to start to kind of see a steady increase of inventory because properties aren't necessarily selling. But if they're selling fairly quickly, then we might see a decline. Listing prices, what's going on there?
Stabilizing.
Holy cow. What have we been seeing for years? Significant increases. We've had, let's see, August, September, October, November. That's a pretty steady indication of what we're seeing in the market, what prices are doing. I know you guys know this because you're feeling it right now, aren't you? The clients are feeling it. Absorption rate, that has been trending up as we would expect typically. And then for whatever reason, this month we had a little significant trend down. I wouldn't say significant, but it's trended down a little bit. Let's look at the sold to list ratio. You've got two different color lines there. What do those two different color lines represent? I gave colored copies this time, so I wouldn't get
Sold to list price ratio.
right. So
Is the beige one or brown one?
yep, the gold looking one, sale to list price ratio. So whatever it was currently listed at when it sold, we're taking that price and we're comparing it to what it actually sold for, right? And that's showing us, hey, well, we're selling properties that we were selling them for more than what they were listed on average in the height of the market. And now it's begun to dwindle down a little bit. And if you look at the percentages, we're probably selling right around 97% of the most recent list price. But there's a whole nother side to that story. And that's the black line, which is the sale to original list price. I don't care what your price was necessarily when you sold it. I want to know where you started.
Yeah.
So what's the ratio between where you started with your list price and where you actually sold? And holy cow, what is that graph done? Right, a much more significant drop, right? And what is that an indication of? What are we seeing more of that we haven't seen recently? We're seeing price reductions. We're seeing price reductions, right? Meaning sellers, the consumer, or their agents are, for whatever reason, deciding to price a little bit more aggressively, but on the higher side. And in the past few years, when the market has supported that, the market is now saying what? Oh, sorry for you. We're not going to do the work for you anymore. You're overpriced. You're going to sit, which has led to an increase in some days on market, et cetera, right? But that's why we see that coming down. So if I'm a listing agent and I'm out there working with clients, or if I have a listing right now that's not selling, how might I use this information today? Right, I might call my seller and say, hey, here's the deal. I was just going over last month's most recent statistics regarding our MLS, and here's what I found out. Our original list price to sale ratio is down. and rather significantly if you compare it month over month. And here's what that's telling us, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. That's telling us that right now the market is having a reaction to prices or to homes that are overpriced. In order to get you to sell sooner rather than later, we've got to make an adjustment. So based on the comps that I just ran this morning and that information I just shared with you, I think we need to do a price correction in this amount. What do you think? Is that one step closer to getting the property sold if they agree to your price correction? Hands down. And oh, by the way, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this isn't just me in my opinion. This is what the market statistics are telling us. Take the market back. The market's always a good guy or a bad guy. Just depends on if you're buying or selling, how it impacts you. Days on market, nothing too crazy there. Price volume. Again, we've been seeing some steady increases in terms of the active list volume that's tapering off just because we've seen a little bit less listed recently. Let's look at some of these summary statistics. I always look at just the year-over-year percentage change. So absorption rate is down about 1%. Average list price up almost 8. Median list price up 11. This is CMAR wide again. Average sale price up 7. Average days on market, median sale price up 9. I don't know why average days on market is an NA. And your median days on market down 11%. We were on for about 27 in 2017 in terms of a median. And the median for 18 is 24, so just shy of a month. Let me ask you this, just as a quick gut check. Anything alarming here? What do you got, Gerald?
Yeah, let's see here. What was it? I think the 8%, what was it? 8%, almost 8% average list price increase. I don't think.
You're talking right here.
Yep.
Okay.
I think I remember it being a lot more previous years, and now it's starting to tick down. And then looking at the forecast for 2019, I think we're going to see that below 5%.
Yeah, well, those percentages used to be what?
Used to be double digits.
Used to be double digit. Now we're in single digits by a good amount. Now here's what's interesting to me. Average list price up 7.7. Average sale price up 7.1. Is it kind of logical that those two would run hand in hand? Hey, on average, we're listing 7% higher, and on average, we're selling for 7% higher, right? So that's something that you would likely see that correlation. And this so to answer my own question, I don't see anything alarming. In a nutshell, I don't see anything here that scares me. If anything, to Gerald's point, I see a movement toward a more balanced, normal market. We might not all be thrilled about it. People with homes for sale right now might not be thrilled about it, but this is a movement toward a more balanced, steady market. Okay, I like to look at just these bottom numbers here. So we've got these first two columns, sold and pended listings. So year-over-year percentage change, CMAR wide, we've seen a decrease in 3.6% in sold listings and a decrease of 3% in pending listings. Active listings and new listings, we've seen a decrease in 2.2 of active listings and a very negligible decrease in new listings. And to the point that you made earlier, Gerald, are those numbers less than they have been, or are they greater than they have been in the most recent past? Are we seeing reductions that are less or more than what we've been accustomed to recently?
Are you talking the last quarter?
I'm talking the last couple of years.
Oh.
I'll tell you right now, they're getting much closer to being zero and positive than they have been for quite some time. Do you guys agree?
Right.
Yeah, actively. I mean, it used to be we were drying up and freaking out because there were no listings, right? Well, this is literally telling us, hey, we're getting back to being in line with where we were last year, and it's been trending closer to zero for a while now. And if it's been trending close to zero, where is it headed?
The normal market.
It's headed to positive territory. It's headed to an increase in the amount of listings we've had year over year. Which, what has everybody been saying is the issue? There's no listings. There's low inventory. Holy crap, right? Which, when you have low inventory and high demand, what does that do to prices? Spikes prices. And what's happening to prices right now? They're coming down. Because what's increasing? Inventory. And have we had a significant change to demand? If anything, demand's changed in which direction?
More.
Higher.
Do we have more demand or do we have less demand potentially? Let me phrase it to you a different way. You might have the same amount of people or more that want to buy, but has their ability to buy in effect. In what way?
Affordability.
Affordability due to an increase in what? Interest rates and the price of homes, right? So you might still have high demand, but the actual ability to purchase has decreased. So we're seeing an increase in inventory, a decrease in the ability to purchase, which means inventory is going to continue to what? It's probably going to continue to grow or sit a little bit longer, which will help the inventory grow, right? It's a market in work. It's a market in work doing what it does best. All right, now let's look at some Rochester specific stats. I'm going to do the same thing. If you would be so kind as to share with your neighbor, maybe. Take one of that. All right. So if we look at Rochester only and we look at number of listings and we look at listing prices, what are a couple of things that you notice? Between September, October, November, what's going on with our listings? Number of listings are going down. Listing prices are doing what? Kind of went down. They ticked up a little bit in November overall. Our pendant and median, though, are still staying pretty much in line with what we've been seeing for the year. Our absorption rate was increasing, and the absorption rate increasing for the year was our first sign of what? That was our first indication that we were having more inventory, right? Now we've seen a subtle decrease, but we've also seen a decrease in listings, so that goes hand in hand. Sold to list ratio, a similar thing that we've seen CMAR wide, right? Only it looks like a sharper decrease to the sale to list price ratio. So that means people are listing properties probably a little bit higher on average in Rochester than they have been in the greater CMAR. Days on market trending upward rather significantly from August to November. And then our volume has seen a little bit of a decrease. So let's look at our summary statistics. Interesting. What do we see right here? Yeah, positive. And do a lot of those numbers look almost like the same exact number? What kind of market have we been talking about that we thought we were moving toward? Balanced market. Does that look relatively balanced to you?
Yes.
I think so. I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out toward the first quarter of next year. But that looks pretty darn balanced to me, and it also looks sustainable. That looks much more sustainable than the double-digit stuff that Gerald was talking about earlier, right? Sustainable, it's a tad bit on the high side, but that's sustainable. Absorption rate went up 9.4%. The absorption rate is still lower than a balanced market, which might be why we're higher than the 3 to 5% we like to see in a balanced market here. Average list price and average median list price up 6.5%. Average sale price up just under 7%, and same with median sale price. Holy cow! What do we typically like to say we like to see in terms of healthy, sustainable home value appreciation annually? What's that number? We like to see 3 to 5%. Thank you. I'll take it. And why do we have that? So let's talk about what's occurred in our market, because here's the deal. How many of you have heard people talking about, oh my God, there's a shift. There's a shift coming. Pack your bags, I'm retiring. It's shifting. Well, guess what? It's not the same shift we just went through. It's a good shift. This is a shift to a balanced market, in my humble opinion. I hope I'm not jinxing us all right now. Right? But if we just had a shift in our market, which was a very significant downturn, that's a terrible market. Where'd I put my other one at? If we just had a fairly significant downturn in our market, and then we began the recovery process, which was accelerated, we just did this, right? So we had a huge downturn, we had to play massive catch-up to get back to where we are, so that now we can have much more level, steady, sustainable growth. Because we saw double-digit depreciation, well, that's why we saw double-digit appreciation. And now that we've appreciated and got back to where we needed to be as a market, we're transitioning to more balanced, sustainable appreciation and growth. Right? And oh, by the way, back at the beginning of this year, what did the Fed decide to do 4 times this year? Raise interest rates. And why? And it's not because they hate us. It's not because they hate consumers and buyers, but why did they decide to increase rates?
Inflation. Slow down the economy.
They increased rates to take this from 15 to 12% down to 6%.
Yeah.
That's why they did it, and it worked. What'd they say they were going to do next year? They said, hey guys, we get it, we're not going to be as crazy when it comes to rate increases next year. We did what we needed to do this year. We've seen the impact that we were looking for. We understand we don't want it to get too crazy. The economy is tanking every other day. If you look just at the stock market, I'm being a little bit facetious there, but they said, hey, we're good. As far as interest rates are concerned, you're going to see us just give some tiny, maybe modest increases, or maybe even some slight decreases here and there to sustain what we've got going on. Nothing major, in short, because we like what we see. We've got the results that we were looking for. Questions or thoughts on any of that right here? So let me ask you this. Have you felt the change in these numbers? For those of you that are saying, yeah, explain to me, what does that mean to you? How have you felt it, or what does it look like in your business or in your day-to-day?
Slow down and show.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What do people think? Yes, no? Is that people seeing in general, based on what you've been seeing, would you say, hey, we're probably having a slowdown, or maybe fewer showings than we typically have had, or that we were accustomed to the last few years? Seeing a couple of heads say yes. It's okay to disagree. Okay. What else?
I think there's not so much an urgency in regards to the offering.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
there's
it.
negotiation power now.
Holy crap, we actually had to negotiate.
Yeah.
Right? That's changed in a couple of deals. Anybody recently submitted an offer and not been in multiples? Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. I love those. I love those days, right? The day that you could just submit an offer and maybe negotiate the terms out over the course of a couple of days and not worry about somebody coming in and snatching it from you. Oh, hallelujah. Right? I can sleep at night.
But those days made you a better person, though.
I don't know about that, Gerald.
There are a few more contingent offers.
Okay, more than just a few. So tell me about that, John. What have you been seeing?
I mean, I got one accepted because there was, somebody sitting in the background that had a house to sell.
Right.
It's saleable. But I had a non-contingent buyer and got it done.
Twice this year, we accepted offers for sellers. My personal business, we accepted offers for sellers, still contingent upon the buyer seller. I've done that for a long time.
Yes.
We've done it twice this year. And oh, by the way, we got buyers' offers accepted, and they still had a home to sell. That was, if you wanted to win a home, that we used to tell people you can't come in contingent. You're not even going to have a fighting chance. Now it's common practice.
Yes.
And especially if your house wasn't even listed yet.
Absolutely. Now we're saying, okay, what's the address? Have you done, when do you expect it to come on? Versus, well, if you didn't have it listed yet, we're going with the other guy, right? So we're seeing maybe fewer, or the frequency of showings decreasing. We're seeing more offers come into play that are contingent upon other homes selling. Which, oh, by the way, if you haven't brushed up on that process, what should you probably do? It's probably one of the most complicated real estate transactions you could do, is when you've got the sale of multiple houses included, right? Know what you're doing and know that form inside and out. It's a little bit more to that contingency than you sometimes realize.
Well,
What else?
For those who haven't done one in a while, the language has changed.
Yep.
For those of you who haven't done one for several years, so it is important to check out that form before you need to use it.
What like? Oh,
The language in the,
contingent on a house?
yeah.
What else? We talked about one earlier. Anybody had to have any conversations with their sellers recently about the price of their home?
Yeah.
We see a lot more price reductions, right? Which is a solvable thing if you do what when you originally listed.
Price right.
Yeah, get the price right. Have that conversation with the seller. Mr. Mrs. Seller, I know that the news and everybody has been talking about how homes are just flying off the shelves right now at outrageous prices. But what we have seen as a result of interest rates and inventory is we're still seeing great appreciation. It's just more modest and in line with the normal market. We're not seeing some of the double-digit appreciation that we have in the past. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I can appreciate the fact that you want to try to get the most for your home possible. So what I'm willing to do with you is test the market. We can price it a little bit aggressively if you want to, so long as you agree with me here on the front end that if within a couple of weeks or a month, we don't have an offer, then we go ahead and make that price correction and get you down to where I reckon it should be sold sooner rather than later. Is that called a happy medium? Is that called a win-win or no deal? I can appreciate the fact that you want to test the market. Everybody else has, so let's test it. But let's not be stupid about it. If we test it and it's not working, then let's fix it. What would not be wise is if we were just to let it sit there and not fix it. Because now you're actually doing yourself a disservice and you're harming the chance of you netting the most amount of money possible for that money. Right?
It's easier having that conversation on the
Oh,
front
God,
end
yeah.
than it is
And later
a month
Because I'm
later.
gonna call you and say, hey Deb, it's Zach over at Keller Williams, how are you?
Good, my house is cold, though I'm not happy.
I can imagine. Well, remember that conversation we had when I first came out to meet with you? We talked about pricing it right. I'm calling you to say it's time to do that price correction we talked about. So I'm gonna go ahead and process that today if you're okay.
Sounds good.
Awesome, thanks very much. And oh, by the way, because I'm gonna do a change to the price, I'm gonna come out full open this week. That's okay. Very good. Right. That's an expectations conversation. You set the expectation at the original appointment. I didn't just say, okay, well, let's that whatever, secretly knowing that I was gonna hopefully come back to her and beat her up for a price reduction later, because how would that make you feel, Ms. Seller?
Lead with these.
That would, yeah, exactly.
Lead with
Lead with
these.
your statistics.
The market says, I thought you told me the price instead of. Everyone take ownership of the list price.
Right. We don't make the market, we just interpret it. Sold listings, pending listings. Sold listings year over year in Rochester specifically, down 2.2, pendings down 2.5. Interestingly enough, actives down less than 0.5%. 2731 to 2719. New listings up 0.2%. That might be the first time we've been in positive territory for quite a while on new listings. We're getting pretty darn close to positive territory over here. I would imagine we will begin to see the increase, especially when we're in a time of year where properties tend to sit a little bit longer. Traditionally, those have been double-digit negative numbers, right? These are clear signs and clear indications of what we're moving toward and what's in store. Any questions, thoughts on that at all?
Well, Zach, I think one aspect of seeing that number move for more in a positive direction for new listings is just what we talked about earlier with contingent offers. I think sellers who are buyers had the mindset of not even getting into the market to even look because they knew that they couldn't be competitive when they had a house to sell. But now that they know, and if we deliver that message that we're seeing more contingent offers, they're more apt to list their home and
Absolutely.
make an offer. So now
True.
we're just creating more
Because
inventory.
what I would ask you guys, I kept asking you, what's one of the reasons people aren't selling their homes right now? Why don't we have the inventory that we know the market is calling for? And one of the answers everybody used to give me was what? Sellers are afraid of being homeless.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not worried about selling my home for
Right.
top dollar. Actually, that's my concern. Because if that's what I do, then where am I going? Because that means I'm happy to do the same thing that the buyers just did on my property, right? Guess what? Great news. Market's cooling down. We can still get you a great price for your home. And oh, by the way, you're not going to be under the outrageous pressure that you sometimes find yourself under to find your next one. Matter of fact, it's a much more common way of doing business again at this point. A very good point. All right, so I want to go over just a couple of articles regarding the U.S. housing market as a whole. We can gain appreciation for what's going on. Keep ourselves educated so we can educate our clients. Next year is expected to be a tough environment for both buyers, particularly entry-level buyers, it's no newsflash for us, and sellers, according to a forecast just released by Realtor.com. There are three types of markets. What are those markets? Buyer market, seller market, balance market. Well, if this article says it's gonna be a tough market for both buyers and sellers, what does that mean? What does that mean with a balanced market option, right? Meaning, okay, maybe it's not gonna be tough for buyers, it's gonna be neutral. It's gonna be fairly neutral for both buyers and sellers, right? As mortgage rates creep up to hit 5.5% by the end of 2019, the average home purchase will be 8% more expensive per month in 2018. So when we look at those figures independently, they don't seem that significant. Oh, interest rates are up X% this year. Home values are up 8% this year. But when you start adding them together and you analyze the impact on overall affordability, you realize, holy crap, we're talking about a 15 to 20% swing in affordability of homes for people. That's why I said, to Leanne's point, absolutely, buyer demand might actually increase, but the affordability is struggling. You can want to buy that brand new Beamer all day long, but you can't afford it, you can't have it, right? The same with a home, right? Key insights. Mortgage rates will average 5.3% next year and reach 5.5% by end of 2019. So if they just said we're at about 5.5 end of 2018 and they're projecting to be about the same by the end of next year, it kind of says what I said earlier. We're probably not going to see any significant huge changes or swings to interest rates, right, between now and the next year. Who knows what we'll see, but that's home price growth will slow with a forecast appreciation of 2.2%. This is U.S. housing market. Now, when you hear appreciation of 2.2% year-over-year appreciation, what does that mean? That makes me cringe a little bit. But then I remember that's including California and Texas and the East Coast. And I remember that here in the Midwest, what that probably means for us is we're going to continue to see the balanced moderate 5 to 6% increases, right? Home sales will decline 2%. Interesting. What I think you might see nationally, potentially, is maybe a decrease in overall home sales. But I think here in the great state of Minnesota, I think we're going to see a modest increase. I really do. See a modest increase in the sale. Home ownership rate, single family home housing starts, meaning new home builds, up 8%. Home ownership rate 64.6%, which would be a modest rise over last quarter. Among the 100 largest markets, only 7 are forecast to see home prices decline, right? So that's when we talk about that 2% decline. Well, when you average all that out, that might mean you have some properties in California seeing a decline of, 10, 12, 20%. Well, a 10, 12, 20% depreciation in California is what kind of dollars to markets in the Midwest? It's a significant difference, right? You have to keep that in mind. That's why we always look at our local stats. While no areas among the 50 largest metro areas are expected to see double-digit gains, 20 metro areas are projected to see home prices rise by 5%. With the exception of Jackson, Mississippi, Nashville, Tennessee, these areas are all west of the Mississippi or Florida. Now, I'm not a huge geography guy. I'm pretty sure Minnesota is which direction of Mississippi.
Hopefully, you know.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we're on the good side of that equation. I could be wrong, right? By the way, Minneapolis-St. Paul, the Twin Cities, is the largest metro area in the U.S.? It's between 10 and 20. It's between 15 and 20. 18 is what it is, last time I checked. 18th largest metro area in the country, which is pretty awesome, right? So I think we're in good shape, everybody. I really do. U.S. housing market is slowing. Thanks for that, dude. Okay, this article gives 3 main reasons. 3 main reasons why we're seeing the slowdown. Mortgage rates have increased, putting pressure on affordability. Thank you. House prices have grown faster than rents since 2012. And here's an interesting one that I'd like to spend a little bit of time chatting about. The 2017 tax law changes reduce the tax benefits of owner occupied housing. Gerald's shaking his head back there. Everybody heard this, oh, this new tax law is great. There are a lot of aspects of it that are great. Oh, by the way, if you're a self-employed person, there's a lot of great aspects about it. But one of the biggest arguments for carrying a mortgage or owning a home has been what typically? Tax write-off. Tax write-off. Well, tell me, did anything change regarding the tax write-off? Yeah. What changed, Gerald?
The write-off is the amount of, it used to be the amount of taxes you paid. Used to be able to write off, I think it was up to, what, 4,000 for taxes?
Decent amount.
Yeah, a decent amount.
They reduced the cap.
Right.
They reduced, they took the cap of what you can, so the cap used to be a period in terms of how much you can deduct, and they lowered it, right? So in a nutshell, you have less of a tax write-off benefit owning a home than you used to have in general. Nothing to freak out about, not gonna crush anybody, but in general,
Except in California.
except in California, they're really hard for obvious reasons.
Tons and tons of people there pay more than 10K.
Absolutely. Our neighbors in Wisconsin are probably also more upset about it than we are, right? But you have to understand that stuff like that is going to impact buyers, their decision, demand, which is going to be directly reflected in the marketplace, correct? Right?
I think there's another impact too
What's
that we don't talk about a lot, but it's the whole millennial culture right now that we're facing as far as marrying a little bit older. They don't want the maintenance that comes along with homeowning.
So I'm going to make a bold claim, and I'm going to say something that I think you're right to say that we're seeing obviously a different trend in that generation. But I would submit to everybody in this room as a millennial, don't hold that against me. I say there are two categories of millennials. There's old millennials, and then there's millennials.
Yeah.
We're old millennials.
Yeah.
We're the good ones. Just kidding. There are several millennials out there that would love to own a home.
Just trying to
Just can't do it. Yeah, just
Right.
can't do it.
It's still being encouraged to get 4-year degrees. That
Yeah.
are useless.
Actually, their mindset is shifting.
Yeah.
The millennials, who chose urban living are now making the shift to wanting to live out in the suburbs.
Why?
Because
Because
they
having
have
kids.
kids, they want.
It's
they
a
want
circle of
yard.
life.
Yeah,
Simba,
exactly.
come on, baby. We're having kids. We're having kids. Hey, this apartment was great, but guess what? I now need a place to change diapers. I want to put my dirty diapers in a place I can't smell where I'm sleeping. And oh, by the way, we want to have play dates. If we need room and we need grass, maybe we want to have a dog, right? That's a circle of life. That's the buying habits and the lifestyle trends. So there are several millennials out there that would love to be in a home, but right now they're being crushed by a 4-letter word. The debt they have from usually seeking higher education. Absolutely.
Isn't that funny though, how, you have to, I bash millennials all the time, and obviously I'm a millennial. But you have to say, hey, I'm like the outlier millennial.
Right. It's
I
funny.
have that conversation like 5 times a week.
It fires me up. I've done some Googling. I'm like, okay, everybody hates millennials. What are we good at? Well, you know what we're good at? We're good at giving, texting. We're good at being charitable. We're great at texting. We're good at, we care about the environment. There are some positives.
Yeah.
There are some positives. But I think that's a significant issue. And understanding that about that buyer is important. It would not behoove us to assume they're not interested in home ownership, because they are. What we actually need to do with millennials more than anything, ironically, is educate them about the home ownership process and what it takes, and yet you can't afford it. Here's how, right? And also, they just need to be educated on how to manage money, period, right?
Well, the
That's
rent that they're paying right now is
oh,
ridiculous.
it fires me up.
Well, and they're not necessarily bad with money either. That's what people said about Generation X. I mean, one of the things, the way everybody talks about millennials, that's how every previous generation has talked about the new generations that come onto the workforce.
I would
So
submit
lots
to
to do
you,
with
I would
20-years
submit to you,
and work
every
ethic.
generation needs to be taught how to manage money.
True.
Yeah.
Not traditionalists, actually. Baby boomers are the ones who invented credit card debt and keeping up with the Joneses, because traditionalists didn't generally go into debt. But the traditionalists hated the baby boomers and thought they were all irresponsible, and then baby boomers hated Gen Xers. But one big difference when Gen Xers came on was traditionalists and baby boomers were both still in the workplace, and they actually unified because they both agreed that the Gen Xers were terrible. They sucked. Well, now we actually have, for the first time ever, 4 generations in the workplace. And so now everyone is like the new ones, the like, oh, the millennials are terrible. Like, terrible workers are terrible with money. They don't, they're young. And as they get older, they won't, it'll be different.
And who do they learn from?
Right. They only learn what they're subjected to. That's why my kids got a beating every week.
That's why Tim gets 2 beatings. Just kidding. Okay,
Yeah, kids believe what you tell them over and over. I told them every day I was a great mom.
I think, you know what's really funny is our youngest son, our kids have to pay for their own school, make this really short. And he was home over the weekend. We asked him to come home because Tim was doing a project and needed some help. And he hasn't gotten any money from us all semester. Because we told him, save your money this summer, and he decided he wanted to go out to lunch every day and drink every weekend. And so he didn't get any money. So he actually said to us on Sunday night, being poor at college has really taught me a lot.
this kid.
Keegan. Yeah, and I'm like, good.
Good.
Now he got a job. He's done with donating blood. He got a job.
I had a buddy, I used to drive to the plasma clinic almost weekly in
Yeah.
college, because that's what he did.
They can donate 8
Now
times
he's
a
an
month
attorney
and it's
working
$50.
downtown. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
But let me tell you, if we were driving to the plasma clinic in some sketchy area of St. Paul, so it was like,
Yeah.
is this really worth it? Dude, I don't know. Anyway, that's how it's supposed to work. I'm glad to hear that. Very good. All right, so I want to just take the last few minutes. We got 5 minutes left to say, okay, if we're looking at, oh, by the way, a shift in the market, if the market is shifting a little bit, everyone, let's understand what kind of shift we're looking at. Right? We just talked about, hey, it's probably normal, an okay shift. It's not going to freak anybody out or put us out of business, right? But also, if the market, if we want to see this occur with our business, or heck, even if we just want to see this occur with our business, but the market is doing this, how do you prevent your business just reflecting the market? You do more. You do more. You do more of the strategic things you should be doing more of, right? That's what this book is filled with. And oh, by the way, the greatest opportunity in real estate markets occurs when? During a shift. During a shift. Doesn't matter what kind of shift it is. Could be down, could be up. When there's a shift, there's opportunity. The 12 tactics that you can utilize in a shift to increase your business and find more market share are contained in this book. I recommend you read it. But in general, get real, get right, remargin your business. You should remargin your business every year. Every year you should look at your expenses and your profit and remargin. We always want what? We want a what margin every year. We want a better margin every year. We want a better profit margin. We want a better profit margin every year. And it's in markets like this, when it's very easy to do well, that what begins to happen with margins?
You start forgetting about your expenses.
It gets sloppy. It gets sloppy. And then all of a sudden the market shifts, and what does it reveal? It reveals just how sloppy you were in your business. Absolutely. So you got to manage that market continuously. Do more with less. Find the motivated, meaning motivated clients, with buyers and sellers. Get to the table, get face to face for that appointment before anybody else can. Catch people in your web, meaning utilize the internet to your favor. Price ahead of the market. I guarantee you for the next 6 months, a lot of other agents are going to continue to overprice properties. If you get ahead of that curve and you price in line with the market, you're going to outperform all of your competitors. And then, oh, by the way, you do that for a couple of months, you're going to be able to take those statistics with you on those listing appointments and say, hey, everybody else is getting 95% list to sale ratio. I'm getting 99. Clearly, I'm the guy I got to list with. Again, that's not my opinion. That's what the market statistics are telling me. Stand out from the competition, create urgency, expand the options, master the market of the moment. Some of that could be what we talked about earlier, whether it's millennials, people that want to sell, and now they can understand they can do a contingent upon the sale of their property or finding their next one, etc. Bulletproof the transaction. So we'll spend more time talking about these in greater detail. But as we transition to the holiday season and you find yourself with some time off, maybe want to do some light reading, peruse some things, highly recommend you crack open Shift. If not Shift, crack open the Red Book, MREA. Read them both over the holidays. If you double down on some of these things while nobody else is paying attention to it, your business will and can continue to do this, even though our market's getting ready to balance out. And that's crucial. That's crucial, because the more your business can do this, the next time the market does this, you can just compound your ability to keep doing that. Any questions? All right, thanks everybody, I appreciate it. There might be some leftovers out there,
And
I'd go
cookie
check them out.
exchange.
Yeah, the cookie
I have a
exchange.
North Star question.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions about North Star right now? That's probably the that's probably the dumbest question
Very
right
good
there.
question.
So here's what I'll tell you, we understand there's some showing time issues, and this isn't specific to our office. This is everybody everywhere, Seymour wide. Properties, so look, I'm gonna take 2 seconds, I'll get your question. I meant to talk about this at the beginning of the meeting. So right now, we've got access to the listings, but when we go to add and edit or change something, because North Star requires more information than Flex did, or different information than Flex did for a listing, we actually can't make a change to the price or to the status of the property until we get the information regarding the listing that North Star requires. So bear with us. If Beth, if you call in, or Deb, you call in and say, hey, we need to change the price, or we need to change it depending, and we say, hey, we can't do it, we need you to tell us these 12 things about the property. That's not us trying to make life difficult for you. That's just a system reality, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come up with a little cheat sheet that we'll send out to everybody to let you know if you need a change right away, what you need to provide us, or if in the future you need to make a change, what you need to get us. And that's only pertaining to the listings that are already in the system. Any new listings that we take and upload into North Star, you have to go through the North Star forms, which will take care of that issue, all right? Showing time deal. My understanding is there's some weird syncage things, maybe the office number is showing up somewhere, there's just a showing time issue. If we're getting phone calls to the office, we're just redirecting the listing agent, right? So you guys can handle it and take care of it. And then we'll work on getting agent-specific numbers to show up where they should be showing up.
So how
If you need to schedule an appointment right now, the system is failing you, I recommend just call the listing agent. Yeah.
It's working for me now.
Is it?
Wonderful.
Yeah,
It was.
Have you tried?
Yeah.
Yeah, it did work for me.
You know what, here's the deal, call the listing agent, it's probably not bad happening, to be honest with you. Yeah. Now, what was your specific question?
It has to do with days on the market.
Okay.
How does that work as far as, we were talking about how down here used to work, if a property was taken off, then that number zeroed back out. How does that work?
Depending on how long it was off the market. So I'm gonna pull up North Star right now.
They have two different numbers.
Yeah, so the CDM, the
Right.
CDON, thank you.
I'm gonna tell you right now, if anybody's heat goes out this winter, you just come camp out in this room, you will do all right. It is toasty in here.
Do you every time have to enter in that information,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
I tried to save it and it didn't work.
Here's the deal, here's the deal. North Star, we're paranoid.
Yeah.
I don't want you giving out your information to anybody. That's where that comes from. And here's what they'll try to freak you out even more and say, Jennifer, if somebody tries to log into your North Star at a place where you don't normally log into it, we're shutting it down.
Oh my.
There's the showing time.
They're not that great.
It's never.
They're not that good.
They'll try.
Give me time.
Leanne, did you see that? On the first screen, it gave the showing time update that it's working.
No, I did not.
Okay.
I'll go back to.
That's all right, that's all right. I
So we've got,
Oh, no, it's got to be.
but this should give us a breakdown of, when you click on them, Deb, it gives you this whole explanation of what it is. So if it's cumulative, or this one says days on market at most recent list price, it tells you exactly what that means, so that you have a good understanding of why, and oh, by the way, what triggers it and all that fun stuff. And oh, by the way, if you need more clarification, you can call these guys. So in a nutshell, if you list a property, it's been out for 30 days, you cancel and relist it, it might show up as brand new. You have 2 different days, right? Days on market might show up as 1 or 0, but your cumulative days on market, because you just canceled and relisted, are going to show what's really been listed at, right? Because instead of doing a price reduction and keeping your cumulative days going, you stop the start of the clock, or at least you try to, right?
Right.
And that might reflect in the MLS, but where is that not going to be reflected on? Third-party websites. So you can cheat the system on those, which I'm not opposed to do, right? But North Star, they try to safeguard against that, or just bring a little bit more transparency to how long the property's really been on.
How long do you have to have it off the market for it to be a new listing?
To reset it.
I'm gonna have to check on that. I wanna say it's 6 months, but it might be a year.
I thought I heard a year.
I
I really
Yeah.
did too.
I wanna
You implemented
so I come here in a year, so my brain wants to say 6 months for SPAR, North Star, and that was 1 year for Flex Seymour stuff. So I don't know.
No, it's
No,
30 days.
30 days.
It's 30 days for you guys.
Mhm.
You guys really cheat the system. But wouldn't you guys get fined if you did that?
No.
It
If
was
you
60
canceled-
days, they
If
dropped
you,
it to
if you
30.
canceled and relisted like within a day, you would get fined. But if you let it go 30 days.
No, if you,
No.
if you
This
listed
is not
within
a
a
new
day, it would
listing.
just continue on. If you waited 30
Right.
days,
Mhm.
Get the new number.
it would get a new
reset to
number
zero.
and start at
And it's
0.
considered a-
But if you canceled it and then went on right away and tried to make it a new listing, then you'd get.
Then you get the fine. Okay, I knew
Or
that.
if it was like if it expired and a new agent got it and listed it again 3 days later, it was still the same MLS
So
number.
it's all you shysters in southeast Minnesota we're tracking. I'm just teasing.
Well, they just dropped that a year or so ago, down to 30.
Down to 30?
Yeah, it used to be 60.
Yeah, and I think before that 90, but now I've heard a year.
A long time.
That is a really long time.
But remember, it only has to be off a day and you can put it on and anywhere else it's gonna show as a new listing.
Here we go. Hang on a
You know
second.
what I
Yeah,
mean?
that'd be true for us
Oh,
too.
that's construction staff. Anyway, I can, what I can have Nikki do is come up with like a one pager that talks about the different days on market and how they're calculated so we can all get set up on it. Any other questions?
I have kind of a random question.
Yeah.
So can you send, like share a link?
Like a property?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Here's what I'll do. Is anything scheduled to take place right after this?
Lower it to email.
Just
I
like
know,
class
that's
at
just
one.
emailing it.
We're gonna take a 5-minute break. If you need to roll. If you wanna come back in 5 minutes, I'll show you how to do it for your six. Thanks, everybody.
Like how.
Because you can flex the shares.
Yeah,
I
to
know.
show.
And you can put it anywhere.
Do we have books like this here?
Well, when you.
We'd have to go buy one.
Does it come up
Take that
on
one.
there?
Take this one, is it yours?
Take it.